Balance is not the primary objective of life in almost any area. I want you to think about that. In almost no area of life is balance the primary objective. But most people act as if it is.
Yeah. Here we go. You see, I got where I am because someone reached out a hand. Help me to stand, be an independent man.
Because I'm standing on the shoulders of a giant.
The shoulders of a giant, y'all.
I'm thankful.
Myron Golden here. I'm here at Skillionaire HQ. That's what I like to call my office, Skillionaire HQ. The name of my business is Skillionaire Enterprises, LLC. So Skillionaire HQ. Here I am with some of my friends here with me today. And I want to talk to you about why most entrepreneurs are out of balance. And a lot of people don't understand, like if you're an entrepreneur, you've probably been accused by people in your family, by people who care about you. They're worried about you. They want to come do an intervention. Oh, you're so out of balance. All you do is think about work. All you do is think about making money. You're so out of balance. And when they say that, you start taking that into consideration and you start thinking, wow, maybe I really am out of balance. Maybe I should be spending more time playing marbles with my children. Maybe I should be spending more time watching television with my family or whatever it is that they think is more balanced that you should be doing. But I submit to you that there's not necessarily anything wrong with an entrepreneur being out of balance. In fact, I would go so far as to say there's not anything wrong with anybody being out of balance. I don't know if you remember reading in Exodus when God gave the 10 Commandments. One of them was not, thou shalt be balanced, right? I don't remember reading that. And I believe we emphasize things culturally that are not as important in reality as they are in culture. And so I believe one of those things is balance. What I did, I took the liberty of looking up the word balance, and one of the definitions on the Google is balance, a condition of which different elements are equal or in correct proportion. Try to keep a balance between work and relaxation. Well, that's the kind of things people say, but the reality is things aren't equal. Everything's not equal, right? We need more water than we need food. Like, things are not equal, right? We need to be more, we have more time awake than we have asleep, right? Nothing in our lives is truly balanced. But what most people say to entrepreneurs is because, oh, you're working 12 hours a day. A friend of mine once told me, he said, the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who works 16 hours a day for themselves so they don't have to work 8 hours a day for somebody else. And I think sometimes that's true, right? But the reality is, balance is not the primary objective of life in almost any area. I want you to think about that. In almost no area of life is balance the primary objective. But most people act as if it is. I submit to you, and I'm going to write it on the board, I submit to you that balance, not only is it not a primary objective of life, balance is a season of life. Balance is a season. What does that mean? Well, it means that sometimes you're in balance and sometimes you're not. Sometimes it's winter, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's spring, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's summer, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's fall, sometimes it's not. Hey, guess what? It's never winter and summer in the same place at the same time. Now, summer is the opposite season of winter, and winter is the opposite season of summer. But watch this. If balance is a season, it has to have an opposite season. What's the opposite season of balance? The opposite seasons of balance is called focus. And see, one of the things you have to understand, and before I even go there, let me give you a definition of focus. I looked this up on the Googles too. One of it is to pay particular attention to. And we might even say to give particular attention to. So here's what you have to understand though. When you are in focus, you are out of balance. And when you're in balance, you're out of focus. So I can promise you, if you are an entrepreneur, nobody who's concerned about you has ever come to you and said, I'm so concerned about you, you're so out of focus, right? But focus is essential to success in any area of life. Track with me now. Focus is essential to any area of life. And the things that we are seeking to transform, that transformation comes through focus. In fact, it's really interesting. It's not only important that we focus, but it's important that we focus on the right things or we pay attention to the right things. Like if I were to, this is not a definition, but this is a formula for success. Focus on intention. And ignore distraction. You say, Myron, what does that mean? Focus on intention, ignore distraction. I'm going to give you the Myron Golden definition of intention. The Myron Golden definition of intention is this: anything that moves the needle in your favor. I'm just going to put for you. Anything that moves the needle in your favor. What's the definition of distraction? Anything that doesn't. And I want you to think about this. All the people who are talking to you about not being balanced, their definition by the way they live their lives, their definition of balance is to focus on distraction. Think about it. I've seen this like in real life. I've seen two grown men. This is the epitome of being focused on distraction, in my opinion. I've seen two grown men I saw it on an Instagram reel. Two grown men at a football game with opposite teams' jerseys on, in a fist fight with each other about a stupid game, first of all, and about people that don't even know either one of them exist. That is the ultimate extreme of focus on distraction. You're so intentional about this thing that does not matter in your life at all that you're going to get in a fist fight, risk having your teeth knocked out, risk knocking somebody else's teeth out, risk going to jail, risk going to the hospital, risk putting somebody else in jail or somebody else in the hospital about a bunch of people that don't even know you exist. But you got balanced. You're not working right now. You're at the football game. And I've been a little odd my whole life. I didn't just get odd when I turned 61. So I've been a little odd my whole life. I can remember being in elementary school, and we used to play baseball cards. We used to collect baseball cards. And I don't know, Brother Ron, you probably did that too, right? So, like, I don't know, anybody else in here ever collect baseball cards or football cards? Okay, baseball cards, basketball cards, football cards. But baseball cards, when I was a kid, baseball was it, right? And I think somebody might be at the door. Oh, good. Okay, so baseball cards are... we used to play baseball cards. But what blew my mind, and I did it because everybody else did it. And the more baseball cards you had, the more status you had in the baseball card. Y'all tracking, ain't you? Okay. And so, but what blew my mind, like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, there were kids who knew how many home runs every baseball player had. They knew how many RBIs, how many bases stolen. I'm like, and I can remember thinking in elementary school, why would you spend that much of your time memorizing a bunch of statistics about some people who don't even know you? That was confusing to me then. As an adult, it sure don't make any sense to me, right? And there are people who can tell you, like, if somebody said to me, Myron, I'm going to give you $40 billion to tell me who was in the last Super Bowl. I was going to say what teams were in the last couple of Super Bowls. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't know who was in the last Super Bowl. I don't know. I'm not saying that makes me somebody special, but in my brain, it doesn't move the needle in my favor to know who's in the Super Bowl because I ain't betting on it because I don't bet. So therefore, I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me at all. First of all, it's a game. Second of all, I ain't playing the game. Third of all, they ain't paying me to watch the game. It's a distraction. And so when people are worried about you being in balance, I promise you that all you have to do, if you want to know whether or not you should get in balance when they're telling you should be out of balance, look at their life and its trajectory, look at your life and its trajectory. If you wouldn't want to trade places with them, I'd just say thank you for sharing and keep it moving. Here's why. When you first start building your business, when you first start building anything, when you first start an exercise routine, when you first start eating right, it requires this much focus and about that much balance. And you're allowed to have about this much focus and about this much balance. Like when I started as an entrepreneur, I used to work all day and all night, at least a couple of times a month. I don't ever work all day or all night now. Right? Because the reason you are so out of balance is because you are so focused on two things. You are focused on overcoming inertia. What's inertia? An object at rest will remain at rest until and unless it's acted upon by an outside force. And if you are an entrepreneur and you've not yet broken through inertia, like breaking through inertia as an entrepreneur to me looks something like $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month in business revenue, right? You can pay yourself a salary and you can pay your team and you still have profits. That's what it looks like to me. Now, my definition doesn't have to be your definition, but 20, 30, 40, 50,000 a month for an entrepreneur who's focused on the right things, which I cover in the B.O.S.S Moves books: lead generation, lead conversion, customer ascension, customer retention. Like, focused on those four things. If you focus on those four things for a year, it's going to be hard for you. Like, if you're really intentional about those four things for a year, it's going to be hard for you not to be at $20,000 to $50,000 a month in business revenue, enough money to pay yourself a salary and pay your team after 12 months of doing that. That's just hard, because those are the only four things you need to do to grow a business. Now, so if you're at the beginning of your business, you have this much focus, this much balance. Why? Because you're attempting to overcome inertia and create momentum. What's momentum? Momentum is an object in motion will continue in motion until unless it's acted upon by an outside force. And see, it requires an immense amount of focus to overcome inertia and create momentum. That's why most entrepreneurs are out of balance. They're out of balance because most entrepreneurs, like the majority of entrepreneurs, are at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey. And it requires a massive amount of focus at the beginning of your journey, which means you are allowed, if you're serious, not curious, about building a successful business that can provide for your family and leave a generational inheritance for your children and your children's children, if you're serious about that, not just curious about that, then you have to be like immensely and intensely focused on overcoming inertia and creating momentum. And when you're in that mode, this is about how much balance you get. But guess what happens? After you get some momentum, it requires less to increase the velocity of that momentum than it did to start the momentum. Which is why when you first start working, you have this much focus and this much balance, this much focus, this much balance. This might last for a couple of months. It might last for a couple of years. For me, this much focus and this much balance, for me, lasted for about 14 years. And I know some of you think, that's a long time. It is, but watch this. The 14 years are going to pass whether you overcome inertia and develop momentum or not. The 14 years are going to go by. So you might as well become like intensely focused on overcoming inertia and creating momentum, because the time is going to go by. And if you understand that where you're headed is far more important than how long it takes you to get there, just that realization, that awareness will change your life. I came to the realization earlier this year. The difference between people who are succeeding and people who are struggling on the struggle bus perpetually, stuck like Chuck in a pickup truck, the difference between those two groups of people is not access. The difference is awareness. Because here's the reality. For the most part, if you live in a developed country, even in most developing countries, you have access to all of the resources that are necessary for you to create transformation in your life. You just don't have awareness of the resourcefulness and necessarily the intention to develop that creativity, that level of intention long enough to overcome inertia and create momentum. But if you will do that, if you will become intensely and immensely focused on your business for maybe 4 months, maybe 4 months, maybe 4 years, maybe 14 months, maybe 14 years. Here's the reality. It doesn't matter. But if you will become focused on it long enough, and how long is long enough? Until you overcome inertia and create momentum, what will happen for you is eventually you'll get to the place where you have this much focus and this much balance. And even if you only get to the place where you have this much focus and this much balance, it's way better than just being, I'm going to be balanced my whole life. Broke people, if I was broke, I'm not talking down to people. If you're broke, You haven't yet earned balance. And you need to develop focus over a long enough period of time so that you deserve balance. Like, I love what Jim Rohn said. He said, the soil says to the farmer, don't bring me your need, bring me your seed. Because the soil doesn't give the farmer what the farmer needs. The soil gives the farmer what the farmer deserves. And what you focus on is going to determine what you deserve. That's why most entrepreneurs are out of balance. So if you're in the beginning stage of your entrepreneurial journey, or you've been on your entrepreneurial journey for a while, like after 13 years, I didn't feel like I was in the beginning stages. But I was. Why? Because I was not yet aware of the principles that would change the direction and the trajectory of my life. But once I became aware of those principles, first principle that I became aware of, it's easier to make a lot of money in a short period of time than it is to make a little money over a long period of time. When I became aware of that, it was my awareness that changed. It wasn't the access to that principle that was changed. It was my awareness of that principle that changed. I stopped looking for and stopped looking at all the hard ways to make a little bit of money, and I only looked for and only looked at the easier ways to make a lot. When I did that, everything changed for me. It changed for you too. So I want to urge you to the dismay of your family and your friends and those who are doing an intervention about you being out of balance. You never come to the kids' games. I'm going to tell you something about this. While I'm chasing rabbits, I might as well chase all of them. I'm going to tell you something. One of the biggest problems in the United States of America, and maybe around the world, maybe in the whole Western world, is we emphasize far too much the importance of parents playing with their children and far too little the importance of children working with their parents. My parents played with us, but those are not the best memories of my childhood. The best memories of my childhood was me going to work with my dad, who was a plumber, and sitting in a basement and sweating copper pipes and learning what flux was and learning how to use a torch and learning how to do measurements on a ruler within 30 seconds of an inch. It was learning that if I'm working on something and it's hard, it can't beat me because I have a brain and it doesn't have a brain. Those are the memories of my dad that I cherish more than I cherish him playing basketball or baseball with us. He did all that. More than I cherish my mom playing basketball or baseball with us or volleyball or whatever, or board games. Here's what I cherish. My mom taught me how to sew. She taught me how to iron. Y'all can make fun of me if y'all want to, but I don't care. She taught me how to crochet. She taught me how to cook. So I became an adult. I can take care of myself. Taught me how to wash clothes. I knew how to use a washer and dryer when I was in elementary school. And if you're playing baseball and basketball and football and tiddlywinks with your children and they can't iron their clothes and they can't use a washing machine and you got kids that are 13, 14 years old and they can't even make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you think you're doing a good job as a parent because you're playing with your children, you are deluding yourself. Anyway, I don't have any opinions. If I did, I'd never voice them in public. But I am here to let you know your life can change drastically if you'll stop worrying about people who are worried about you not being balanced and stay focused until you deserve balance. I hope this blesses you. If this video makes sense to you, share it, like it, comment on it, subscribe. I always forget subscribe. Subscribe. Do that thing. Okay, and all the other YouTube-y stuff that y'all know how to do that I don't know how to do, do that too. Peace out, Cub Scouts. We'll see you on the next video.